It's another edition of SEC College Football on CBSSports.com. Alongside Spencer Tillman, I'm Tim Brando, and our best holiday wishes on this Yom Kippur to Jason Horowitz. For a breakdown of the LSU-South Carolina game, be sure to click on the link for the SEC College Football Highlight Show. But now let's talk a little bit about Florida. Florida had to struggle to beat pesky Ole Miss on the road in Oxford today, had a big lead, couldn't hold it, and I think their defense, the question marks that they have, are warranted about their defense.
Well, this is kind of a mystery to most people, but coming in, Ole Miss holds the advantage in this series, and they still do. It was 11-9-1.
Rex Grossman didn't like playing there in 03 either.
He didn't like waking up early. But, despite that, we saw the carryover. I don't know what it is about it, the locale, maybe it's the earlier start that does it, but clearly Florida showed some problems today.
Hey, if you're going to be a top-ranked team, you got to play early. You bet. Got to play late. You got to be able to get it done. Let's look at a comparison from Florida's team a year ago statistically to now, Spencer. Chris Leak was a proven passing quarterback. Tebow, I think, has gone a long way to help in that regard. And when you've got all the weapons that they have from an offensive standpoint, we really haven't seen the best of Caldwell. What is the essential difference between Florida of a season ago to now?
Well, I think it's the numbers that Tim Tebow is putting up. We saw him in the red zone, as you pointed out. He rushed for 168 yards today. That's huge. But that's problematic as well because that puts your best player on the football field, your most important player, in a precarious position. He's going to take a lot of hits. And the question I have is, can he go wire to wire at the quarterback position?
One of the things about we should say this about Ole Miss, too. Ed Orgeron has improved his recruiting. But the problem for him is not beating the teams you need to beat. And that's like the Vanderbilt game. You've got to beat teams that you're almost as good as. And his team obviously can play up to a level emotionally, but can they stay off that roller coaster ride and beat the teams that maybe you're as good as?
And we saw that as a reoccurring theme today. And you're right, Ed Orgeron is our example of it. But we saw it happen with Louisville today in a game that they should have won clearly, even though it was on the heels of a loss. We certainly know that. But see, Craig Thorpe at Louisville has got to get his troops up and do the same thing that Ed Orgeron or any other coach in that same situation must do, and that's manage your players.
Obviously, over on the western side, so much yet to be determined with how Alabama and Arkansas are going to play out in their games being played tonight. But in reality, the only team in the SEC not in action this weekend was Vanderbilt. And Bobby Johnson's squad is 2-1 after that win against Ole Miss. They're trying to become a bowl team, just like Sylvester Croom's Mississippi State team. What are the chances that Chris Nixon and this Vanderbilt team can be a bowl-quality team?
Well, what we've learned so far this season is that anybody is not exempt from being knocked off, and we saw it happen with big teams across the country. Auburn is a team that's struggling. Kansas State should have had that game won. And, and so at the end of the day, you look at what's there. All of those teams have issues. You got to get to 6. You get to 6, you're in it, man.
Yeah, that means obviously you got to take care of one of those teams that you're not going to be favored against. Additionally, the thing that jumps out at me about Vanderbilt is anytime you've got an outstanding receiver and a good quarterback, you've got a real shot because you've got to score points now to win in this league. You've got to score points of plenty.
But I still believe it, maybe not to the extent that it is the case in the Big Ten. Still in the SEC, you still got to be able to run the football. And to me, that's still going to be important, but you got to be able to mix it up as well. And you're right, passing is important in the SEC.
I know you miss Jason. I do, too. But it was a pleasure being with you, pal.
Pleasure being with you, my man.
That will wrap up this edition of the SEC College Football Show presented by Geico. For more on all the teams in the conference, including their results from Saturday night, be sure to navigate here on CBSSports.com. For Spencer Tillman, I'm Tim Brando. We'll see you next week.